Do you have a story to share with the world? Of course you do. We all have stories to share. An Anchor podcast allows you to share your interests in a way that connects to others all across the globe. If you have been considering starting your own podcast and don't know where to begin, Anchor makes it easy to record, edit, and publish with the click of a button. You can even add music. Whether it's crime dramas, self-improvement, paranormal adventures, or tips about parenting, you too can share your unique imprint on the world. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. You've got this. I believe in you. Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Today, let's talk a little bit about secondary trauma. This is an area that I personally suffered with a lot, and being an empath, I thought that this would be a nice, beneficial presentation to kind of share with you some of the ideals around secondary trauma and how it can impact our energetic field, which then can hinder and do things within our emotional body as well as our physical body as well. So what is secondary trauma? You know, in this day and age, there's so much violence and chaos. It's almost like it's the norm in our society. We can get secondary trauma from the things that we watch on TV, listening to a story from a coworker about some sort of trauma that they experienced, watching a show and watching someone go through some sort of trauma, and then us kind of picking up on that energetically and carrying that with us. So secondary trauma can really happen when we accumulate and carry the stories of trauma, which can include images, different sounds, details that maybe we have heard. You can actually feel things, in your body that can remind you of a particular trauma. And it can really just shape our reality. So for example, I worked in a trauma ICU for, over nearly 10 years, and I was constantly witnessing other people experiencing trauma. I was watching people come in with severe brain injuries, with severe assaults. Maybe they had gotten assaulted. Maybe they tried to commit suicide. Maybe they were in a severe car accident. They had maybe a gunshot wound to their head. And I was physically witnessing not only the people coming in with these particular types of concerns, but also the families who were grieving during the process of, these loved ones either going through the healing process or unfortunately passing away. And so even though I wasn't particularly involved with these people to the point where I knew them, they weren't people that I knew personally, but they were people that I was working with on the unit, and I was physically visualizing people going through trauma. Well, you wouldn't really expect that, you would carry that with you. But at the time, I didn't really realize that I was an empath. An empath is someone who soaks up the energy of others, and it can come out in several different ways. It can come out through physical pain, emotional burnout, compassion fatigue, a lot of different ways. So when I was dealing with this particular situation, I didn't really understand that when I would come home at night and maybe have a sudden burst of tears, or, just an overall sense of grief and sorrow and sadness. And I would start to get sick. I would feel my body just hurting and aching, and emotionally I felt drained. I felt really sad and sometimes depressed. I would get really depressed, and my life was pretty stable at the time. I wasn't really dealing with a lot of personal trauma or personal drama, for that matter. But what I was witnessing and visualizing on a daily basis was taking an energetic toll on me that I didn't even see coming. It was like this, this freight train was coming at me and I couldn't see it, I couldn't hear it, I didn't know it was coming, and then boom, one day it just kind of knocked me out. And I started to do some research on why I was feeling this way. I started to show symptoms of what the doctors thought were fibromyalgia, and all of these different types of really intense pains in my body that I didn't know what they were from. I was suffering with some really, really severe lower back pain, pain shooting down my legs, pretty intense neck pain, headaches, all of those things. I didn't know what it was from. I thought, I ate really healthy. I did a lot of detoxes. I didn't drink a lot of coffee. I was really trying to be as healthy as possible. I did, eat some meat here and there, but it wasn't like a crazy amount. I wasn't eating hamburgers, every day of the week. I was really trying to focus on eating as healthy as I could. I always tried to choose organic if I had the option to do so. So I just didn't understand, why was I feeling like this? Why was I feeling so sick and tired and in pain? And as I began to do my research, I came upon the concept of secondary trauma. There's other names for it, like vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue. And there are a lot of people who suffer from this, and they don't really realize they're suffering from it, like first responders, healthcare workers, social workers, doctors. Teachers can suffer from this, and honestly, the general public can suffer from this. Specifically, what comes to mind is when we're sitting there watching television and the news pops on and it shows a shooting in an area. Or I remember specifically feeling really sick and in pain when I watched 9/11 happen on television. I wasn't physically there in New York City when it happened, but I was witnessing it on television. And the impact of that, of what those people went through, hit me. And that can be a form of secondary trauma. So it doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're physically in that environment of that person going through that trauma. You can be witnessing it or visualizing it on the television. You could even take it as far as witnessing it or visualizing it in a movie. You see someone who's maybe suffering with cancer and they die and their loved ones are there grieving, and you empathize with those people who are going through that grieving process, and you can pick up that energy and carry that with you. So for all of these years, I was picking this energy up and carrying it around with me, and all it was doing was causing me more and more pain and suffering and burnout and exhaustion, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I think I've shared in a couple videos ago that I attended this energy healing conference it was in Layton, Utah, I think, and that was back in 2016. And I heard this woman up on the stage talking about energy and empaths and all of this stuff. And I just started to burst into tears because I thought, oh my gosh, everything she was saying, I was relating to. And at the time, I didn't know what the heck an empath was. I knew what empathy was because in the field I worked in, I had to show empathy. I had to know the difference between sympathy and empathy. So I understood what empathy was, but I didn't really understand what an empath was per se. And as she began to talk, I just started to well up with tears and relief, almost like, oh my gosh, I think I'm figuring out what's going on with me, because this diagnosis of fibromyalgia and we don't know what's wrong with you and here's some pills was not working for me. I was always the type of person that wanted to try to cure things holistically or naturally first. And if I had to get down to the point of taking pharmaceutical drugs, then I would. But I usually was able to figure things out before I got to that point where I had to take pharmaceutical drugs, not only for the purpose of I didn't want them in my body, but I just didn't want to pay for them either. They can be very, very costly. And I was working in organ donation and transplant at the time, and I was watching all my transplant recipients just struggling to pay their bills and to pay for the immunosuppressant drugs that they were receiving. And to me, it was killing me to see them having to really struggle just to survive and to be able to afford that medication that they needed for their body to function. So, professionals who routinely come in contact with trauma and loss as a part of their daily lives are greatly affected by this. And this in turn has the potential to kind of run off on those people that are close to them. So, say for example, you may not work in a healthcare field, you may not be a first responder, you may not be a teacher, a social worker, but maybe your daughter is, maybe your husband or wife is, maybe your best friend is, and maybe you're hearing some of the stories that they're sharing with you, and you are energetically and emotionally picking up that energy like a sponge. And, family, friends, and colleagues of these people who have experienced these types of losses or traumas or grief situations, kind of struggle with those feelings of distress and shock and trauma. And oftentimes, some of us, I know with me, I would hold it in because I didn't want to share it with my loved ones. I didn't want to subject my loved ones to the things that I was seeing on a daily basis. But maybe, if you're with someone who is opening up and sharing those things with you, and you're kind of picking that energy up, you could definitely be suffering from secondary trauma just as long as they are too. So they're seeing it from their perspective, wherever they're working, and then they're coming home and sharing it with you. And then you could be picking it up, especially if you're both empaths, then you're both going to automatically just kind of connect to each other's, energy body from that. So, and it doesn't have to just be healthcare. It can be law enforcement, counselors, emergency personnel. There's so many different layers of ways that you can be affected by secondary trauma. But the good news is that you're not alone, and there are ways that you can heal yourself from these different types of trauma. And I personally believe that we're all here to kind of transcend that energy of that trauma. Our ancestors, our families have suffered so greatly throughout their lifetimes. And now we are here. We have been chosen. We are the ones who are here. I could just see us, somewhere before we entered planet Earth to be like, hey, I want to sign up for this. I can totally see myself doing that. And many of you who are watching this video are probably ones who are doing that as well, or who did that, who made that choice to come here to transform that trauma, to transform that energy. But then we got here and we thought, whoa, what did we sign up for, right? This is really intense. This is really dense. We are here in this really heavy planet. And now we have signed up for this really kind of muddy thing that we have to get through. And, in my journey, I've just learned all these different tools and techniques to try to help myself get through those, those really heavy emotional burdens, that stagnant energy, that trauma, that pain, and just really transforming that so that I can feel lighter and happier and just more free and carefree. And in return, I can also share those tools and techniques with others. So a couple of the tools and techniques that I've been able to use to help me overcome secondary trauma is EFT tapping, the emotion code, and muscle testing. So those are the three things that have really helped me. And now there's so many other ones, eating healthy, getting plenty of rest and exercise. Those are all, kind of basic things to help you get through this process. But when it really comes down to those those memories or those feelings and emotions that get trapped in that subconscious mind. The EFT tapping, the muscle testing, and the emotion code have been really beneficial to try to move me past those memories. EFT is wonderful for people who have been suffering with post-traumatic stress or have suffered with some sort of a really severe trauma. And it helps them, it doesn't help them erase the memory, but it helps them remove that emotional charge around that memory. So every time they think of that particular memory, they don't get that emotional buildup that comes, after you start to think about what had happened to you during that particular traumatic event. So, it's really only human to be affected by the pain of others, but especially if someone feels responsible for making things better for someone. Most of us empaths are also people pleasers. I know I was, until I figured all of this out, and I now realize that, when I was trying to please everyone, all I was doing was depleting my own energy, and it was making me really sick and suffering with a lot of emotional pain and physical pain. So when we start to suffer from our own pain, we have to ask ourselves, is this our pain or is this the pain of those around us? And that was very eye-opening for me, because I didn't realize that the pain that I was suffering was from the pain of others. Like I said, I had a pretty stable life. I didn't have a lot of trauma or pain or suffering or grief or anything going on in my life at the time, but I was witnessing others going through it. And I was a people pleaser. So naturally, I was energetically connecting myself to these people. So energetically, I was connecting myself through etheric cords. You can kind of visualize it like when a mother has a baby and that umbilical cord is connected. That's kind of how I envision etheric cords. Whenever we come in contact with other people and we connect with them on a compassionate or empathetic level, we create an etheric cord. Sometimes those cords can be healthy. Sometimes they can be unhealthy. So, if you're a caregiver and you're taking care of someone who may, say have bone cancer or something that's really painful, and you start to realize, gosh, I have a lot of pain. My back is killing me. My arms are killing me. My neck, I have these headaches. Ask yourself, is this my pain or is this the pain of the person that I'm caring for? And this is where muscle testing can really come into play. So you can muscle test, is this my pain that I'm carrying or is this somebody else's pain? If this is someone else's pain, then you want to get rid of that. You want to not only cut that cord, but pluck that cord. And I like to use the kind of visual of plucking cords, because it's like when you cut the grass, you're just cutting it. But when you pull out that grass or that weed, it's not going to come back, right? So when you are plucking those cords, you are ridding yourself of that connection with that person. And it could be a very unhealthy connection, because they are kind of siphoning off of you to get your healthy energy, because they are trying to heal themselves, heal their own wounds. They're trying to feel better. They're trying to get back up to a higher energetic vibration. And they see that that's where you are. And naturally, they're going to want to just suck that out. And they might be even doing this subconsciously. They may not realize that they're doing this on a conscious level, especially if you live with someone. Just sleeping in the bed with someone, your energy just starts to kind of intertwine and intermingle, and you automatically start to build cords with one another. So usually when I feel that way, I will muscle test, and I go through each of the chakras. I'll say, okay, my crown chakra, do I have any unhealthy cords? Yes or no? Okay, yes. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me release those cords and move on to the next chakra. Okay, third eye, how many cords do I have? Are they unhealthy? How many are unhealthy? Do I need to eliminate these? Do I need assistance in eliminating these? Sometimes you might need assistance from a higher power, from divine source, or Archangel Michael, whoever you want to call upon to help you, your ancestors, to release those attachments and those cords. Feel free to do that. Those are things that you can do as an empath to cleanse your energetic system. So, how do you identify with secondary trauma? So I'm just going to ask a few questions, and you can ask yourself, Are these things that I'm suffering with? Is this secondary trauma that I am feeling? So, do you regularly witness the suffering of others? Are you in a position where you're seeing a lot of people suffering? And, for example, you might hear someone share a traumatic story, and or you may review a medical chart. Maybe you're a medical coder and you're seeing a lot of diseases and ailments and people sick in your medical charting. You may not even think, wow, I'm subconsciously bringing that in to my energetic system. I mean, I used to review medical records and they were all about death. I mean, all the medical records I reviewed were people who were dead. And you don't really realize the type of toll that takes on you when you're just constantly looking at that. And I was on such autopilot at the time that I didn't even really realize it was affecting me, but it was affecting me from a subconscious level. So ask yourself, am I in a position where I feel responsible for the safety of others? Maybe you're in law enforcement. Do I feel empathy towards others that I don't know? Maybe you're at the grocery store and someone walks up to you and starts sharing, the fact that they have cancer or they're sick. I know with me being an empath, people have a tendency to gravitate towards me and tell me their whole life story. And I have to learn that, okay, I've got my bubble of protection on me. I can empathize with this person, but I don't need to carry that pain for them. I can hand that pain back to them because that is their journey. That is their lesson that they need to learn, that they signed up for as a part of their contract when they came here. These are ways that people are advancing and raising their consciousness and healing their family traumas and their past life traumas. And so if I'm taking that on for them, I'm not helping them. All I'm doing is enabling them. So you can listen to people and be there and empathetically, but you don't have to carry their luggage for them, right? So, do I work harder than is healthy for my mind, my body, and my spirit because the issue feels, deeply personal to me? So, healing others can often set us up for re-experiencing the impact of our own traumas. So if you have had your own traumas as a child and now you are listening to other people's stories, all it's doing potentially is re-triggering all of those deep-seated traumas that most of us just kind of stuff back and compartmentalize. So some of that stuff can come bubbling to the surface, and that's where the healing comes in. You want that stuff to bubble to the surface, but what you don't want to do is cram that lid back on and shove that stuff back in the pot, right? You want to release that pressure. You want to release that because all that does is moves that stagnant, negative, traumatic energy out. So when you're coming in contact with some of these people, you might realize that, wow, I'm really being triggered, by this. And when you consciously step back and ask yourself, why am I being triggered? That's when you can really dive in deep and figure out that's where I need to heal, right? So some signs and symptoms of secondary trauma, which you may be experiencing, or you may have someone in your life who could be experiencing it, from an emotional standpoint, could be some emotional shifts, like maybe hypersensitivity, or they're really emotionally charged. They could be lashing out at people all the time, or you could be feeling really disconnected from your emotions, a sense of numbness. That was exactly what I was going through. I was completely disconnecting myself because I couldn't take it anymore. I just could not feel it anymore. It was like a glass of water. I was like a glass of water, and the pitcher just kept pouring that water, and I was just overflowing. My glass could not take any more water. I was done. And so I just completely numbed myself out. You could feel guilty for not being a team player. That was one of the things I experienced working in the healthcare field. People they needed so much help, and they just needed so much from me. I couldn't give it. I just couldn't give it anymore. And then I go home and feel guilty and shameful about it because I wanted to rest, or I wanted to take a break. And I would feel guilty because I wanted to take a break. I needed to recharge my battery. You could actually feel like no matter how much you give, it will never be enough. You are constantly depleted, constantly exhausted and burnt out. Those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness toward the future. You're just like, is this my life? I can't do this anymore. I just want out of this. You could have increased levels of anger and or irritability, resentment. Things could bubble up. Not wanting to take a vacation. That was something for me. I love to travel. I love to take vacations, but it was too much work. I was so tired that all I wanted to do was do a staycation. I just wanted to stay home, get in my jammies and tune out and veg out and watch Netflix. Like, that's all I wanted to do. And that wasn't me. That wasn't my personality. Some physical symptoms that you could feel, or you're just feeling constantly exhausted. You can't seem to get enough rest. You're sleeping too much, or you're not able to sleep at all. Like, you could have both sides of the spectrum. Physical tension in the body, maybe lower back pain, headaches, grinding of the teeth is a big one, those types of things. Poor immune system. I would go, and then I'd take a few days off, and then I'd boom, get sick. I'd get a cold, and then I'd be knocked out for days. That was very common for me because I was on this system of go, and the moment my body started to relax and my mind let go, I would get sick. And that happened to me time and time again on vacation, all the time. Different difficulties in thought patterns. You may experience some of those things. You may have a hard time seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, a hard time seeing solutions. You may feel distracted. People are coming at you and you just can't take it anymore. You may jump to conclusions on things because you're just so done. You're so tired of it and you don't want to have the time to process anything. You may get defensive immediately when people come at you. You may feel attacked and you may attack others. You may lash out. You may start to minimize your own suffering in comparison to other people's suffering. I did that a lot because I'd see people really, really suffering, and then I would be suffering, but I would diminish it because I knew that it appeared to me that they were suffering more than I was and that they needed me to help them through whatever it was that they were suffering. You may have nightmares or vivid dreams, intrusive thoughts like traumatic incidents may come up while you're going about your day. Behavioral changes. You may start becoming very absent-minded, not wanting to go to work or not wanting to show up, or you may start forgetting things. You may not want to shower anymore. I know that was something that it just was too much work. It was too much work and I was so tired. Not putting on your makeup, not, doing your hair, doing the things that you enjoy doing. You may stop doing that on the weekends. If you like to go out to festivals or events or farmers markets and you just don't want to, you just want to lay in bed in your pajamas because you're just done. You don't want to deal with people. You want to be completely separated from that. You may have relationship challenges. You may have a difficult time connecting with loved ones. You may feel very disconnected from them. You may be on your phone or your laptop all the time because it's easier to deal with that than it is to have an actual intimate conversation with someone. You may start to view others who are involved in your same field as not understanding your needs. That was something that I definitely struggled with. I didn't understand why people didn't understand what I was going through when they were going through it too, but it was because everybody was so burnt out and so exhausted. You'll have an absence of a personal life. You have no personal life. You work or take care of your loved one, and then you're just done and you don't want to have any other interactions with anyone else. So those are some ways that you can identify if you or someone that you know is struggling with secondary trauma. So I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. This was something that came long and hard for me. It was something I did not see. I had to shut off autopilot and actually physically go in and start to research this information because I didn't see it. I was so out of tune. I was so disconnected from reality, from my life, from the people around me, because I was so numb to everything that was going on. So you or someone that you know may be experiencing this, and they may be in that state of numbness as well, that state of disconnect. And this is where the EFT tapping can come into play, can help you get in there to figure out what it is that is causing this particular type of trauma to take place. And if it is secondary trauma, oftentimes there's a deeper trauma that's a primary trauma that we can get to that can help release that stagnant energy around that. So if you're interested in having a session with me, you can visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org. I have several different types of sessions that we can do. We can do an EFT tapping, we can do an emotion code. I actually do emotion code via email as well, or over the phone, because it's all energy. And, so it's really up to you. Check it out if it's something that interests you.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the emotion code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.